Coming up on today's Locked On Big Ten, we continue our look around the Big Ten's recruiting classes with Asher Lowe of Locked On Badgers. Why was Wisconsin's class not as big as it has been in previous years, and what will change as we head into February? Asher breaks all that down here on Locked On Big Ten.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I have been telling you about Prize Picks, and if you still haven't signed up, what are you waiting for? Prize Picks has all the college football action that you could ever need, along with college basketball. More exciting than ever, too. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. What they do is you take 2 to 5 players and over and unders on their projections in a game. You can win up to 10 times your entries on any time you play, and it's just you against the projections, not thousands of other people. So it's easier for you to win. Head on over to prizepicks.com, sign up for an account, use our promo code Locked On for a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. It's really everything that you could want out of daily fantasy sports and more college players than ever to play with. We're talking Power 5 players, but even those mid-major guys too. It's a bigger selection than ever and a new way to play the game. So if you're into daily fantasy, head over to prizepicks.com or download the Prize Picks app and sign up now. This is it, the putt to win the tournament. If you sink it, championship's yours. But as you're going on that backswing, your visor falls over your eyes. Is this how you're running your business? With limited visibility because you're going through things with old spreadsheets or outdated software? Well, it doesn't have to be that way. Right now, you can switch over to NetSuite by Oracle. It's the #1 cloud financial system to power your business's growth. 93% of surveyed businesses increased their visibility and control after upgrading to NetSuite. Over 28,000 businesses already use NetSuite. So for the new year, NetSuite has a new financing program for those ready to upgrade if you want to join them with a link over at netsuite.com/LockedOnNCAA. Head to netsuite.com/LockedOnNCAA for this special one-of-a-kind financing offer on the #1 financial system for growing businesses. That's netsuite.com/LockedOnNCAA. Before we get back in with Asher, thanks again for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day. Also, make sure to check out the Ultimate College Football Playoff Preview 2021. Local experts, betting advice, and draft analysis. The most comprehensive college football playoff preview begins this Friday. You're tuned in to Locked On Big Ten. Everything you need to know about the conference every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Alongside Asher Lowe, the host of Locked On Badgers, I'm Nate Dickinson. We're here to talk about the Wisconsin recruiting class, or at least where it's at right now, as Asher joins us after signing day, a full week now on Wednesday when this will air. We're talking here on Tuesday afternoon. Asher, this class right now, if you're just looking at the straight up rankings, it is not really anything special, but it's still a very small class as things stand with only 14 players signed at the moment. Where are you at with where Wisconsin's recruiting class is at as a whole? Because just from the outside, it's kind of hard to decipher exactly the status of what this team has in 2022.
I think that if you're looking at an analogy, they didn't hit a home run. They didn't strike out. I'd say this is more of a up the middle single. Like they got the job done. They got on base. They didn't, hit it out of the park, do something crazy. But this was not a strikeout class by any means. And I think if you look at different rankings, first of all, I think recruiting class rankings are really stupid because you can frame them in a bunch of different ways. I don't think stars are necessarily bad. Like there is history that shows that 5-star guys are more likely to be NFL first round picks, and a lot of numbers that show that all that your star rating makes you likely. I do think 3-star ratings are really dumb and don't mean anything because they use them as just a filler. So if a guy's a 3-star, you don't know anything about him from that, in my opinion. Like there are 3 stars that should probably be closer to 5. There are 3 stars that probably shouldn't be ranked. And you don't really know the difference between them. So recruiting class rankings in general. So when you look at like 24/7 Sports and you see that this is the 11th ranked class in the Big Ten, that doesn't scream single. That probably screams more strikeout, right? Like that's probably more of a negative. Let's start with the context of the class. So Wisconsin lost their director of player personnel, Saeed Khalif. He went to Michigan State, who's the guy that's in charge of all the recruiting stuff. They lost him during this cycle. And that's pretty hard because when you have a guy that's talking to all the kids, he's the main point guy, right? He's the guy that people know. He's the face of everything. And you lose his assistant in Jensen Gebhardt, a guy working under him in the personnel department. So you lose two of your most important pieces in the player personnel department, which is the recruiting department essentially at any college football program. That's pretty hard to overcome. They both went to Michigan State, and the reason was money. Michigan State paid him a ton of money to come over there. Wisconsin does not pay as much money in their recruiting budget as Michigan State does, and as many Big Ten schools do, by the way, yet they still somehow end up near the top of the Big Ten year in, year out. And the other reason that this class is small, not only because they lost a couple guys in the recruiting department, but because 2021 was big, really big. 21 Wisconsin signees in 2021. And you have to take into account that, Nate, a lot of the 5-year guys are going to come back for that 5th year because of COVID. A lot of the guys have already said they are coming back. Colin Larsh, Fallon Hicks may be coming back, but probably not. Keanu Benton is basically definitely coming back, which is a huge get on Wisconsin's defensive line. So there are certain positions where Wisconsin and Colin Wilder are moving on, but some guys are moving on, some guys are coming back. The point is that wouldn't even be a discussion if it wasn't the COVID year, right? So there are certain guys coming back that are going to play and take spots. You had 21 guys in the recruiting class last year. I don't think Wisconsin wanted anybody more than, say, 14. The only negatives you can point to are losing out on Billy Schrauth, who went to Notre Dame, an offensive lineman from Wisconsin who was in that Wisconsin or Notre Dame camp for a long time, picking between those two. But they got the number one player in the state, Joe Brunner. They got Isaac Ham a couple days ago from Sun Prairie, who is a game wrecker and was being recruited as a linebacker, played defensive line in high school. They got Miles Burkett, quarterback from Franklin, state champion. So there's a lot of good things with this class. They got Curtis Neal, Nate, a guy that had offers from Alabama and Georgia and decided to go to Wisconsin and Ohio State and decided to go to Wisconsin. And there were a lot of good things that came out of this class. So I don't think the number of people is a concern at all. Yes, they could have gotten Schrauth. Yes, you would have liked to see them maybe make a better effort at Jerry Cross, a guy that a year ago literally committed to Penn State, but a guy that is from Wisconsin, highly ranked guy at a position of need, tight end, after they're going to lose Jake Ferguson to the NFL. So there are a couple misses for sure, but they didn't miss entirely at all.
So that's one of the things I wanted to hit on here. Again, just for those who don't know, I don't know. I'm not trying to point at other people. Is this what this class is going to look like as far as numbers? Is 14 about where it's going to be? Are we expecting a lot more by the time we hit February?
I'm not. I mean, maybe one or two more guys, but I'm not expecting. And walk-ons for Wisconsin, the walk-on tradition is so rich that I think you'll see a couple PWOs in that time. But I don't think that Wisconsin wants to add a ton more guys. And the reason is what I said. I don't think they can. And then the transfer portal exists too. And I think that they're going to make some moves in the transfer portal for sure. So I don't think they have the opportunity to add a few more guys. So I don't know if they have the spots and can promise guys that want to come in and want to eventually play, hey, you're going to be able to play in this year because this guy's going to leave. Like there's too many guys at different positions in front of people right now because of seniors coming back and because of a huge 2021 class and a 2021 class that was better than any class on paper in Wisconsin football history.
Yeah, it's definitely not the kind of problem that you would have in other normal years, only having 14 people in that recruiting class. No doubt about that. So given that Paul Chryst was more selective in where he was going here, I think it bears that much more value to ask, where do you think he was trying to attack in this recruiting class? Where are the places where he wanted to get deeper?
You know, I think that the first thing Wisconsin attacks in any recruiting class isn't a position. I think it's the state. Wisconsin wants to own the Badger State, and they did that to an extent. Like I said, when you look at the top 10 guys in the state of Wisconsin right now per 24/7 Sports, Wisconsin got the number one guy. They're probably going to get the number two guy almost 100% in Carson Hintzman, who hasn't committed yet and signed the dotted line yet, but like he's coming, in my opinion, and I think in most people's opinion. 24/7 Sports has him as a near lock right now to come to Wisconsin. They got the number 5 guy, Isaac Ham, who I mentioned from Sun Prairie, and they got the 7th ranked player and the number 1 quarterback, Miles Burkett. They also got the number 10th overall ranked player offensive tackle out of Stoughton, Barrett, Nelson. So you got 5 of the top 10 guys that stayed in state, which is a good win for Wisconsin. They always want to attack the offensive line because that's what this program is built on. And that's what the state is honestly built on. Usually the state produces a lot of really good offensive line pieces. And the top 2 players in the state are both offensive line guys in this class. Wisconsin likely going to get both of them. Already got the number 1 guy in Joe Brunner. So I think that they attacked the state. That's what they do always. And they did it pretty well. I think that they wanted to shore up the linebacker position. And I think they did that, knowing that Leo Chanel, Jack Sanborn won't be there for that much longer. And it's such an important position for Jim Leonhard's defense. It's the most important, in my opinion, on that defense and the way that he structures it. That matters more than anything. Tristan Monday out of Saguaro High School in Arizona, a guy that they really like. They also got Aiden Vaughn out of Michigan, number 14th ranked player in Michigan at the linebacker position. So a couple good guys to bring in at linebacker. And like I said, Isaac Ham, who's the top 5 guy in the state of Wisconsin and a 4-star per 24/7 Sports. He's listed as a defensive lineman on this recruiting class if you look at the website, but they actually recruited him as a linebacker. So a lot of good news at that position for Wisconsin.
Definitely looking good there for the Badgers. As you mentioned, Asher, a whole lot of other things looking good for the Badgers just in what it's had before. This small recruiting class is really a result of everything that we talked about. The 2021 class being so good, everything else kind of coming together. It looks like Wisconsin might have a lot of these pieces coming back next season. We've seen other teams obviously have similar situations with what's going on with COVID, but not every other team has the same kind of small class that Wisconsin does as a result. Do you feel like the Badgers are going to end up, this is kind of away from recruiting, but benefiting a little bit more from the experience coming back, all this extra stuff we're talking about next season after that, or I guess next season with the COVID immediate stuff, a little bit more than other teams will?
Yeah, I think that they're going to get a lot, but I think a lot of teams are going to get a lot of help from that. And it's too early to tell because we don't know exactly who's coming and going. But Keanu Benton, getting him back is massive on that defensive line. Once again, probably the second most important position after linebacker in Wisconsin's defense. And a guy that in many people's eyes is going to be an NFL player and wanted that first round or second round grade, isn't likely going to get it. Hasn't confirmed 100,000% he's coming back, but made it pretty obvious. Basically said, if I don't get a first round grade, I'm coming back. So he's back. And then we'll see what Wisconsin gets back on the defense. And also, of course, you got to remember one more thing about this class before I forget to mention it. The 2022 class actually included Braylon Allen for a long time.
Yeah.
He reclassified to 2021 and then did what, well, we all watched him do this past year. So you can kind of include him too in this 2022 group in a way. And that already right there elevates Wisconsin a lot in terms of looking at this class and evaluating it.
Really, really good point to make. Asher Lowe's with Locked On Badgers every single weekday, talking about all this stuff, of course, as it happens. And as we talked about, a lot more still has to happen with Wisconsin and a whole bunch of other schools throughout this cycle before we get to next season. So obviously you can tune into the show Monday through Friday there. Asher, anything else you wanted to touch on with this group of guys out of 22 before we let you go?
Miles Burkett, quarterback.
Oh, right. Of course. We talked about that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Is a guy that I'm really excited to watch. He is a fascinating story. If you haven't listened to the Locked On Badgers episode we did with him, I think 2 weeks ago now, you have to listen. And not because of anything Ben or I say, because we just basically shut up the whole time and listen to Miles talk. And he is awesome to listen to. His story is incredible. Started as a guy that was a backup on the freshman team. Didn't know where he was going to practice freshman year because they kept bouncing him around from freshman to JV. And that's freshman year of high school. That's like most guys that are going to be college quarterbacks are not on the freshman team or not even knowing if they're going to play on the freshman team their freshman year. By the end of that year, he was the backup on varsity. And by sophomore year, he was a starter at Franklin. An amazing rise for him. A guy that didn't have anything but MAC offers until pretty late in his recruiting cycle. Dealt with an injury his sophomore year. So many things he overcame at Franklin. And then he finished it with a state championship this past year, beating Isaac Ham, who's also a Wisconsin commit I've mentioned, and Sun Prairie at, guess where? Camp Randall, Wisconsin Stadium, to win the Badger State championship. A guy that idolized Russell Wilson growing up, a dual threat quarterback. Wisconsin hasn't had something like that in a long time, and he's not going to play next year. Might not even play the year after, but I'm excited to watch how he develops and see what he brings, because talking to the guy, you just feel that it factor from him. And definitely go listen to that Locked On Badgers episode if you haven't or we had Miles on. It was a pleasure.
Right. Yeah. He's on Locked On Badgers. That's a couple of weeks back now, as you said. So if you scroll back a little bit, you'll be able to see his name there and be able to find the episode. I'm glad we hit on that. I usually ask if you missed anything just because to kind of wrap things up. But we talked about making sure we mentioned him. And yeah, that's obviously a big story that we wanted to get to. So I'm glad I asked that before we let you go. Asher, again, thank you for coming on as always. It's at ALO33. And also you can find him on Badgers Wire, writing on everything Wisconsin. Is there an underscore I missed in there in your username?
Halo_33.
That's right.
Twitter, and then of course Locked On Badgers, as the people know.
All right. That's Monday through Friday, and ALO_33 on Twitter. Asher Lowe, along with Ben Kenny. We got to get Ben in here at some point again soon when we're talking Wisconsin stuff on the show too. Until next week, Asher, thanks again for coming on. We'll be back here to wrap up in just a minute.
Thanks, Nate.
BetOnline has you covered for all of your online sports betting needs, whether it be props, parlays, straight up bets on the money line, or anything else. You can go to BetOnline for any of it and really get yourself the best bang for your buck too. We have a promo code for you, of course, Locked On, for 50% on your first deposit added on top. But if you head over to BetOnline, you're also going to find their brand new website, brand new ways for you to bet on all of your favorite sports. So head on over now, and again, check out everything that they have to offer because it's new and updating all the time. And again, we got free money for you to play with just by signing up with our promo code Locked On. Again, Locked On when you sign up for a 50% welcome bonus on that first deposit. And of course, you'll be letting them know that we sent you, which helps us out too. It's the holiday season. You want those sweet treats, but you don't want to be feeling guilty after the holidays are all done with, right? So I've got a solution, Built Bar. It's the place to go for all of your protein needs, of course, you know that, but, well, there's all sorts of products that can get you that great nutrition value. Not everyone brings you the great taste of Built Bar. Built Bar has 100% dark chocolate in every one of its bars, along with less than 200 calories in most bars. I mean, less than 150 in a lot of them too. While we're talking less than 5 grams of net carbs and sugars, we're getting everything that you need and nothing that you don't packed into that bar in something that, again, tastes really good. This stuff doesn't look like a protein bar. It looks like a candy bar. It tastes like a candy bar. I tried their key lime pie one just because I'm not a big chocolate guy. A lot of their bars have chocolate. Their key lime pie new bar does not. By the way, new flavors come out all the time. If you are like me and a little bit pickier, it's outstanding. You got to try these people out. Built Bar, again, built.com is the site to go to. Use our promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. Again, LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Thanks for tuning into the show today, and thanks for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day. Make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, and expert analysis from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. You can listen to that wherever you're listening to this. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe in to the show here where you're listening now, and subscribe into our YouTube, youtube.com. It's Locked On Big Ten, just like it is here on wherever you're listening to your podcast. Got a video version of our show that, again, just gives you a little bit more of a added look into how we do things over here. Locked On Big Ten, again, back tomorrow. We'll have Matt Sheehan in to talk, I believe, just about anything going on in the Big Ten. It's always fun to have Matt on. Isaiah Hole to wrap up the week, of course, later on Friday. That's how we'll wrap things up. Until tomorrow, Nate Dickinson with Locked On Big Ten.